Okay, let's begin. If you haven't been to office hours before, I'm Dr. Laura Markham. I'm delighted to see you all. And this is our office hours for April 2021. And we're doing 2 weeks from now, we're doing a workshop on resilience, which is our spotlight at the moment. We're talking about resilience for your child, how to raise a child who's more resilient. We're also talking about resilience for you. So the, the practices that raise a resilient child are things that we work on really all the time. It's related to emotional intelligence. It's the kind of parenting we always talk about. And self-care helps make you more resilient. But there's some specific things that have emerged from the research about what resilient people are more likely to do. Uh, their attitudes, the practices they have, how they help themselves be more resilient. So the audio that you're going to get next week on Friday, every Friday I send you something, right, for the membership. This Friday we have the office hours, but next Friday you'll get what I call a blueprint for resilience. It's an audio that talks about the research on resilience and what helps us be more resilient. So I'm hoping that you'll find that helpful. And then the week after that, we're actually doing a workshop. So it'll be like this, but our focus then will be resilience. So you're welcome today to ask about anything. And you can ask about resilience, but we'll have our focus on it really in 2 weeks at that workshop. So today, office hours, and I'm wondering, I am Candace. I'm sorry, I've lost track of you here in the faces, but everybody, Candace is our moderator for our Facebook group, if you don't know her yet, and also keeps us on track with this queue. So she's the one who notices your raised hands and tells me the order in which I'm answering questions. So Candace, who are we starting with today?
You know what? We are going to start with Lizette, and then
Okay,
I will make the queue in the chat bar, and everyone will see where you are.
yeah, great. Okay, Lizette.
Hi. Oh my gosh. I'm so excited. Hello. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for taking my questions. First, I just want to thank you, Dr. Laura. You have changed our lives. We've been following you for about 8 years now, and it's just been an incredible journey. My family thanks you, my husband thanks you. It's been wonderful. So thank you.
Thank you for saying that. It's so rewarding for me to hear that it's made a difference in your life. That's wonderful
Oh,
to hear.
the biggest difference. It really has. So my question today, because I know lots of everyone's waiting, and I kind of wanted
Yes.
to have a question on resilience. So
Okay.
I have two boys, a 7 and a 10-year-old, and one of my sons, my 10-year-old, he has anxiety, and he's been dealing with his anxiety for years. He's always been a very highly sensitive child, severe separation anxiety as a baby, and as a fourth grader now, as a 10-year-old, every year when he starts a new year, he has a very difficult time transitioning through school, starting in the new year. He refuses to go to school. There's lots of crying, but we worked with a therapist, and we do lots of strategies with him, and I do a lot of emotional social learning with him. We do growth mindset. We say mantras. We do lots of stuff, and
Great.
every year he gets through it, but it's very, very difficult in the beginning.
Can I ask you, Lizette, does
Yes.
it get better? Like when you worked with the therapist, did that person help him to use specific tools or help you to use specific tools with him?
Yes, we worked with a therapist last year, and she had more of a kind of throw him in there type of
Oh,
strategy. And
okay.
then I stopped working her with this year, but I used a lot of the strategies that I got from her, and I did more of a slow exposure for him this
Good.
year,
Great.
and it worked
Great.
great. It reduced the
Okay.
amount of time, instead of the 10 year. I mean, last year it took 10 days to transition. This year it took
Okay.
about a week to get him to
Okay.
start going to school every day. So I mean, I definitely use some of her strategies. We're trying to find a new therapist now, but every year it's very difficult in the beginning, but we get through it. So the question I had was that we are in the process. I live on Long Island. I know you're in New York. I live in Nassau County, and we want to move out to Suffolk County. And for a bigger property, we have a very small house, very small backyard. My kids are very active, and we're nervous about setting up our son for failure if he has to move, go to a new school, meet new friends, or is this another opportunity to help him build resilience?
I
You know, like
love
it's so hard to just, he's always the child that says no to everything. No, 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 no. And, a lot of times we have to push him, and there's things that he does end up loving, even though he said no at first. And, now, of course, he doesn't want to move. He doesn't want to. He gets extremely upset when we tell him about it. And, my husband and I are terrified if we're going to make a bad decision. Like, moving also, part of it is we want to give him, a bigger house, a pool. He doesn't have like strong connections where we are, but he has a brother who they're very close. They're best friends. They do everything together. They're each other's best friends, but he doesn't really have like that best friend, in the school district. It's a very big school. Every year there's a whole bunch of new kids, but he is on like lots of teams that he plays with the same kids every year. So, I don't know if this is like a good opportunity for him. I always say it's just going to make you stronger. Or is this like going to, severely damage him and devastate him later on?
So, the old adage, whatever doesn't kill us makes us stronger. This is not going to kill him. This is not going to damage him and devastate him. This could be super hard for him. And you'll have to give him a ton of support to rise to the occasion. That's our whole approach doing this work. When you think about what peaceful parenting is, conventional parenting says to the child, you just have to deal, and I'm going to threaten you if you're not doing what I want, right? And what we do is we say, we're going to still have expectations of our children, but we're going to give them as much support as they need to meet those expectations, right? And so sometimes we have to modify our expectations. It may not be a realistic expectation. I think if the family needs to move, that's not something that for the rest of your life you look back on and say, oh, we didn't move because my son was scared to move, right? You make your decision to move. On the other hand, if you're moving because you want him to have a better life, he might be much happier to stay exactly where he is. No pool, good friend. Good friend is super important, right? He has that good friend.
Well,
So,
he
it might
doesn't have
be,
a good friend. Like he has his
but he
brother.
doesn't have that person now.
No,
Oh,
no.
he has his only his brother. That's
He's
right. And
only
he
has
hasn't made friends in the school district. He hasn't made friends.
like not
Right.
close relationships, none. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I'm not hearing anything that would keep him there, right? That, so I think I wouldn't be making the decision for him to give him a pool or whatever. I would make the decision. You and your husband are the grownups in your house. You can decide you want a bigger place. You can decide you want, and you will give him the support he needs, and he will rise to the occasion. It won't be easy necessarily, but that's okay. He will find, what happens when we face adversity? Think about this whole past year for all of us.
Yes.
We are forced to dig deep for resources and develop those resources. And we come out of it with resources we didn't have when we went in, or that we didn't readily have, right? We develop resources, and he will do that. Your son will do that. And it sounds, Lizette, like you've been so great thus far. You've been so attentive to him in helping him to rise to the occasion for whatever he needed to do, right? For school. And you'll do the same thing here, and he'll be fine.
Yeah, we definitely give him lots of support, my husband and I, and we're not afraid of those things. We're just afraid of like we never know, like with him, to push or not to push. Like when is it too much? When do we say no?
That's the $1 million question for
Yeah.
resilience. Right. It is. I think it's the $1 million question for all of us, even like on a normal day with a normal kid. It's like, should you push this at this moment? They were able to handle this last week, but will they be able to keep it together? They're really tired today, whatever. We're always making those judgments. I wouldn't let it hold you back from moving. I guess that would be my professional opinion, is that you'll have to give them a ton of support, but you're the kind of mom who will do that, from what I can see.
Yeah, definitely. It will be hard, but we know it. We want to. We will. Okay. Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, I'm going to mute you. And Candace, who's next on our list? Did you already post it in the chat?
No, I'm gonna do it verbally, and then I will post it. We're gonna move to Veronica.
Okay, Veronica. If you can unmute yourself, Veronica.
So thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm greeting from Europe, Portugal. And I thank you very, very much, Laura. I think that you should be really nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize, because that you are really, 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 it's just amazing, and I'm really happy that I came across your information and AHA parenting and everything. It's really wonderful. So my question is, I will just close the door because they are
Yes, sure.
screaming a little.
Well, we'll wait.
Yeah, they are two boys. I have two boys, 7 and 5.
7 and
And
5.
my question is about the resilience also, because my concern is about the older one who easily gets frustrated. For example, when he's playing games with friends, when he couldn't or when he can't tie his shoelaces, or when he cannot pass some level in a game. And sometimes he's whiny also. And even if I try some games, like for example with a strong voice, where is your strong voice and things like this, or I'm trying to speak to him about other strategies he could use, when he's really frustrated, he yells, and everyone just freaks out because it's very, very unpleasant. And I don't know what else I should do or
Okay.
could do.
All right. So he's your oldest. So you expect a lot of him compared to the 5-year-old probably, but 7 is still very young. So it makes sense that sometimes his experience of the world is that it's a lot coming at him and it's overwhelming and he can't quite handle that disappointment, some huge disappointment, like something little. I'm really thinking something, they lose the game or he isn't able to do something or whatever. But he feels overwhelmed by that. That's the definition of overwhelm, right? It's too much for
Okay.
him to find the inner resources. So resilience would be finding those inner resources. But no one is always resilient. I mean, you and I have moments where we're like, oh no, how can I cope with this, right? Every one of us. So he certainly at 7 is going to have those moments. So your question is, how can we help him in those moments to find more inner resource? And I think one very important thing for you to remember is that game, where your strong voice game, which I learned from Larry Cohen, it's a great game. It's kids like that. Kids have a hard time turning down the invitation to play. But if you were really overwhelmed and I said to you, oh, Veronica, where's your strong voice? It's somewhere here. I know it's somewhere. You would say to me, I don't want to be strong right now, right?
I'm not doing it all the time.
Exactly. So I think for him, what we want is to help him cry. When children whine, what they're really saying to us is, and I don't mean whining like complaining, like, but why can't I have a cookie? I don't think of that as whining. I think of that as persisting toward their goal, and we have to set a firm limit. And if they really do want to cry about that limit, that's fine. That's sometimes what they need to do. But when he's whiny because he's overwhelmed and he's upset about something, I think our job is to say, oh, you're having such a hard time, and to offer him the opportunity to really feel those feelings. And that might involve crying. It might be that he's overwhelmed because, well, it wasn't such a big thing from outside, but he's also got all the stuff inside, right? Like he's not processed the stuff in the emotional backpack, right? That's very common for all of us, all humans. So let's assume that one of the reasons he has a hard time coping so often and seems not resilient to you, let's assume it's full backpack. Is he, I mean, whiny is a sign of a full backpack. Is he sometimes, and also you said he can be very unpleasant. Does he explode? Does he get frustrated and explode?
Yeah, but just in the moment,
Okay, good.
just in
Okay.
the moment, because otherwise he's very, very sweet, calm, and really, really very
Okay.
nice
So
boy.
that doesn't sound like full backpack, actually. The
Yeah.
sweet, calm kind during regular life, it's
Yeah.
only in that moment. That actually doesn't sound like full backpack. That's great news. If he were
Mhm.
sort of always a little bit whiny, that would be a
No,
sign
no,
of full
no.
backpack. Okay,
Mhm.
great. So maybe not full backpack. And if you're doing regular roughhousing with him to get him laughing, right? And regular empathizing and regular one-on-one time with him, all of our regular tools. If you're doing those things with him, then it does help him work through anything in the backpack. So really it does sound like it's just that he, and this is not uncommon, that he has I don't know, their shorter fuse is the right way to say it, but simply less emotional regulation, when less frustration tolerance, we could say, right? So I think at that moment, this is gonna hark back a little bit to Lizette's question. We're gonna ask him to regulate a little more when he can, and we're gonna back off when he can't. And it's not a science, it's an art form. You're just trying to figure out where he is, understand, how he's feeling at any moment. If he's whining, I think it's a sign he needs your compassion and support, obviously. If he's explosive, I think you can say, about, but we lost, or I couldn't do it, or,
Yeah,
I think you
he
can
really
say,
yells, really like yells, and
right.
yeah.
So you remember that rage doesn't begin to dissipate until it feels heard. But
Yeah.
under rage, there's always, when we're in rage, when we're angry, there's nothing under there. I have a right to be mad. We all feel, and that's what he feels. And right. But in fact, there is always something under it that's more vulnerable than the anger. Like the powerlessness of losing. No one likes to lose. No, we don't like that feeling. So when he gets angry, you can say, and he's yelling, you can say, whoa, you are so upset about this. And you can offer him to take a break. Like if there are other people around, like friends, it's a great thing to say, sweetheart, I'm sorry, this is so hard. You want to take a little break? I would not say, don't shout, don't explode. I would not do any reprimand. I would offer him an opportunity to re-regulate, right? And then if he lets you be with him, I wouldn't talk. I wouldn't lecture. I wouldn't say, oh, you really can't explode that way. No one will like you. None of that stuff's going to be helpful. You're there that he can borrow you for regulation or blow off a little steam. I never do that right. I always mess it up. That's why everybody else is better at this than me. And you can just listen and say, oh, sweetie, I'm sorry. That's so hard. You're not trying to talk him out of this. Now that he's felt all that, because what he's feeling is not just the anger, it's what's behind the anger. It's that powerlessness and that I'm not good enough and all of that horrible stuff that none of us wants to feel. And as he tells you he's feeling it, and don't try to talk him out of it, just like, oh, sweetie, I'm sorry, that's so hard. That feels really bad, I know. And then once he's got it out of his system, you can say, this was really hard. I'm sorry. I wonder what you could do now. Your friends are still over there. They'd love it if you'd rejoin the game. Or, it's a hard thing to learn to do X or to get good at X. And, you're just not good at it yet. Or you just aren't as good as you want. I wouldn't evaluate whether he's good. He's the one who says he's not good. You're not as good as you want to be yet. And I can support you. We can talk about how I can support you, that you could keep practicing. No, I don't want to practice. I don't ever want to be good at this. I don't care. That means he hasn't worked it through yet, right? And you can keep talking about it for the next week. But I think at the time when someone's dysregulated, we know they're not in a place where they can have a growth mindset. It's just big feelings. It's only after that subsides that he can actually work through it. Is that helpful?
Yeah, great. I'll try, definitely.
Okay. Good luck. Let us know how it goes. Okay.
Thank you.
Candace, who's next?
I think it said I was next.
Lisa.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't even see the list. Yes, Lisa. Hi, Lisa.
Hi. Well, I think Lizette and Veronica and I are all on the same page.
Okay.
But we've had a lot of transition in our family and moving through COVID, and my kids are in they're in their second school this year. We've been remote. Their remote learning coordinator called and told me they're going to kick us out of remote because my kids aren't staying online and they're turning off. They're 7 and 9, first and third grade.
Okay.
Turning off their cameras, and we're fighting about school all day. And I remember at the beginning of the year listening to your homeschooling versus virtual versus thing, and it was like, I want to protect their love of learning, and I don't want to fight with them every day about school.
Right.
And so it's created a lot of anxiety in my 9-year-old, especially. My 7-year-old's pretty go with the flow. Like he'll have he still won't go to class and he won't listen to me, but he comes out of it quickly, but she's very concerned and worried. So on Monday, I went and looked at a house. On Tuesday, I said, we're going to buy it. And now I said, next week, they may as well start their new school. So next week is spring break for us. And the Monday after, we're moving. So all happened within like a week. And all of a sudden, and the kids were really on board. They were excited because they really want to go back to in-person school. And I really want them to go back to in-person school because I've been trying to work and manage them. And our babysitter's flaked out 100 times for 100 reasons. And so they seemed on board. But then last night when it started like sinking in, Lexi was like, I have to get back my gymnastics leotard and I can't be on the team anymore and I'm not going to be able to compete. And she's just like sobbing. And then I started crying and I'm like, how can I teach my kids emotional regulation when I'm not emotionally regulated? And so I just, want to help support her. Like you were telling Lizette, or Lizette was saying, like, we want to support her in this new situation. And I think it's going to be all good things, but I'm just wondering like what I can best do to help with the anxiety piece, because she's smart, she's athletic, she's, like she doesn't need to worry, but she's very worried about everything. And I talked about like going to mountain biking camp this summer. She's like, well, I don't want to go because the other kids are going to see me. And what if I'm not good enough? And I don't want to ride with any other kids. And I'm like,
So first of all, Lisa, I want to say that emotional regulation doesn't mean that you don't have feelings. It doesn't mean you don't cry. It means that you notice how you're expressing. I mean, every one of us is radiating what we're feeling every minute of every day. We don't know it. We're never taught that. But when you walk into the room, your children pick it up, even if they couldn't articulate that, right? So we're always going to have feelings. We're always going to radiate them. The question is, can we maintain a state of well-being as much as possible? And when we feel sad, be with the sadness. When we honor that, when we feel scared, notice what it is. See if we really need to feel scared. If we're angry, notice how that's impacting people around us. And maybe we want to, look at what we're actually angry about and how we're expressing that to the people we love, right? And pick and choose or take responsibility for our own emotions and how we're expressing them, right? That's what emotional regulation is. So when you found yourself crying when you were talking to your daughter, you had sadness also. Going to a new house that's excited that you're buying this new house and your kids are on board. That's a wonderful, exciting thing, but it doesn't mean that you don't have some sadness about what you're leaving. When you have a second child, it's the most exciting thing in the world to have a baby. And you still have some sadness, most of us. There's always some sadness there, I think, about the life you had before with your firstborn and how you don't have that relationship in the same way with them anymore, right? We have to notice and honor all the sadness we have. And I think for your daughter to see you crying is completely fine. And you can say, you're so sad you have to give back your gymnastics leotard and that you won't be on the team anymore. You have loved being on that team. That's what sadness is. It shows us what we value. And you have really valued this. And I have valued it for you. And I have loved living. This house isn't perfect, but I've loved living here. We've made such a wonderful home here for our family. And now it's very exciting to go to someplace new, but we're letting go of our old house. And we can do some goodbyes. We can do goodbyes to our house where we go from room to room and say goodbye to each room and thank you. We can write a thank you letter to the gymnastics coach and, say thank you for everything you've taught me. And this has been so important to me. And I hate to leave it. And we can look forward to the new school is going to have gymnastics. I assume, that there's some way to pursue gymnastics in your new community. So I think that's the sadness part. The other thing you were asking about, though, is fear. Your daughter, it's not just her sadness of letting go of gymnastics, it's the anxiety about what's in the future. And if I go mountain biking, I might do it wrong and people might notice. And I think our attitude has to be, of course you won't do it perfectly yet. That's the reason you take the class. None of those kids will do it perfectly yet, right? Some of them might have already had more practice, and how great, because you can learn from watching them. Some of them might be worse than you already or not. Sometimes we're the worst one in the class, and then we're the fastest to improve because we can watch everybody else. That's the reason to take it, that to enroll in it. There's nothing wrong with being the worst in the class. And as long as you're getting better every day, that's the whole point. I think we have to have our society has such a warped view of what's success, right? And we create such anxiety and we steal our children's joy in learning. Learning is when you start from here and you get better at it, whether you're mountain biking or reading or math or anything else, right? And so I think that's all part of growth mindset. And I think when kids are more anxious, they're very afraid of being judged. So I think that's another thing you can deal with. And I do think it would be great for us sometime after resilience to do a spotlight on anxiety, kids and anxiety. And I think for all of us, this feeling of not being good enough and what if people look at me and find me lacking? It's time to ditch that. It's time that we're the arbiters of whether we're good enough, right? And I would ask your daughter questions like right now, like, okay, so if I go to use yourself as the example, if I go to the grocery store and somebody looks at me and they don't like my outfit because I'm wearing jeans and a t-shirt or whatever I always wear, and they think I don't look good, do you think that I should worry about that? And what would your daughter say?
Yeah. No.
No, it's
Yeah.
none of their business how I look. They don't know what I'm dealing with today and how frazzled, I haven't washed my hair and I look like a wreck. That's okay. They don't know what I'm going through today. They don't know what my schedule is. They don't know what I'm prioritizing, right? Nobody else, judgments come from fear. And when somebody's in the grocery store judging somebody or in the mountain bike class judging somebody, they're doing it out of their own need to feel better about themselves. And I think it's so important that we teach our children that. It doesn't mean she won't still have that fear occur to her, but we need to learn to talk back to our fears and our anxiety. And I think this is one of the things that's come out of the research on children and anxiety is that it's not just children. The research on anxiety in general is that these voices in our head, the voice in our head, it's not always right. It's often not right. And we owe it to ourselves to stand up to that voice and say, thanks for trying to take care of me. I know you wish I'd washed my hair and looked better, but it's been a busy morning and we need to get the food. I'm here at the grocery store. Or, for your daughter, you could play with it with her and say, what would you tell that, forget the people outside her. If the voice in her head said she's not good enough, what would she tell that voice in her head? Right. And then if somebody outsider actually said to her, well, you're not good enough. You're not as good on the mountain bike as I am. What would she say to that person if she could be free to say it without being rude? What would she say? Right? Like, I'm here to learn. You don't have to feel better by judging me. None of us have to judge each other. We could all just appreciate each other. Right. So I think start her talking back to herself and keep, have you read anything with her on anxiety?
We had Dr. Shafali's book, The Superpowered.
Good. The one she wrote with Renee Jane.
Yep.
Yeah. Renee's wonderful. And I think was actually responsible for a lot of that book, but worked with Shafali on it. Yeah, I think that's good. I think that's actually a great place to start. And is that helpful to your daughter?
Yeah. And she's even picked it up by herself. And I think part of it's like her struggle with like doing some of these things because like I only want to mountain bike and ski. I don't want to do gymnastics. I didn't want a daughter who was I don't want to be a gymnastics mom. I want to be a mountain biking mom. And so she's like stuck between her struggle of like really wanting to please me and do the things that she thinks I want her to do and doing the things that she loves. So
I think that's just a great illustration, Lisa, that all of us have preferences for what our kids will be like because of things that we're into. And they're all themselves. I mean, I can tell you now, having two kids in their early 20s, they will be themselves. Thank goodness that's who they will be, right? And so our job is to get out of the way and to appreciate who they are and learn from them. But I realize that she already has a read on you and she knows what might please you. So I think it's really important to be explicit about it. And I just want to wrap up with you by saying it's online learning is not a normal way to learn. There was just another big release of a big study. They've been studying like 40,000 kids since the pandemic started, and they look at them every few months. And basically the ones who are learning in person are doing 100 times better emotionally and intellectually, in terms of academics than the ones who are remote learning. And it's just the way it is. Remote learning just is not, it's not a appropriate for us to do. We're doing it because we're in a pandemic and, we'd rather stay alive, but it's not like it's something we would otherwise choose to do. I do not think that there's anything to feel bad about. I love hearing your kids have not lost interest in school. They still want to go back to school, and they will have some anxiety about returning. Most kids do have anxiety about returning, but, um, uh, and if you weren't in the membership back in whenever I released the thing on anxiety, kids and anxiety, and it's about the return to school, um, we can post a link to that. I can, anybody who has kids returning to school and the kids are anxious, we'll post a link and give you access to that, because on the website it sells for $20. So let we can somebody remind us. Candace will remind me, and we'll get a link so we can post that for you. Um, uh, anyway,
Thank you so
good
much.
luck with your move.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Okay, our next person is Amy. Amy, there you are. Hi, can you unmute yourself?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good. Thank you for taking my question. Okay, so I have a son. He's my oldest. He's 10, and then my daughter is 8. And most of the time they're great friends and they play really well together. But my son can get very explosive, I guess, is the word I would use. Anytime sometimes I don't know what causes it. Sometimes he'll just decide to grab something from her, and then it causes a fight, or usually an argument first. And then I know that it's going to escalate to him hitting her or kicking her or somehow physically hurting her. It also happens when he feels like she's getting something that he's not getting, there's an injustice being done, or she's not obeying a rule that he knows she should be obeying, or, any situation like that. It usually escalates to him physically hurting her, or he'll like grab her and try to force her to come in the house. If I've told them to come in the house and she's not coming, but he's coming, he'll go grab her. Anyway, so this physical aspect is definitely a big trigger for me emotionally. And so I've had a hard time trying to figure out how to handle these situations with him. And so there's also a second aspect of, even if I am staying calm and I just ask him to, step away from the situation and come in his room and sit with me, or come on the couch and sit with me, sometimes he will just defiantly say no or yell no. And I get like, I don't know what to do in those situations. So hopefully that all makes sense and sort of paints the picture for you.
So I think at 10, he's old enough to stop himself from physically hurting his sister. He's maybe not necessarily old enough to, if he's always been someone who's had poor frustration tolerance, it may still be very hard for him to control his anger, but he can control what he does with the anger. He can direct it differently. So that seems super important to attend to. The rest of the time when he's not angry, you said they play together well. So does that mean he's basically in a good mood? Everything's fine? So how often do these outbursts happen?
I would say it's daily, though, once or twice a day.
That he actually loses his temper and hurts her? Okay.
Yeah.
That's a big deal. That's a big deal that it's happening once or twice a day. No wonder it's pushing all your buttons, because
Right.
you obviously feel like you've tried everything and you can't get it to stop. So, in my sibling book, there's actually a description of working with a child who's in exactly the situation, is about this age, where you make a contract with him and you talk about other ways that he can handle things that upset him with his sibling, and the absolutely no hitting. And, you know, I guess my first question is, does he make a repair every time he hurts her? If he's doing this a couple times a day, that would be a lot of repairs in the course of a day.
Yeah. I usually have to prompt him to, I'll say, you've done something that's damaging your relationship with your sister. And, he understands that it's important to apologize. And so I'll usually have to prompt him. He usually, well, that's not true. Maybe 50-50. Sometimes he will on his own.
So that's great that he does it by himself sometimes. What is her response when he apologizes?
She's very forgiving.
That's unfortunate. I mean, it's an unfortunate thing, obviously. It's unfortunate only in the sense that she could make him work a little harder. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
She obviously, she's the younger sister. She wants to have him be, nicely connected to her. She's forgiving. It also implies that even though he's hurting her twice a day, she's not that badly hurt. That's a good thing,
Right.
But we also don't want her to get used to being hurt twice a day, obviously. So and I know
Yeah.
that's what's bothering you. So
Yeah.
so first of all, back up. Are you doing preventive maintenance with him?
Yes, I wish we could do more, but we do like a special outing with each of the kids just on Saturdays, but we switch off. So it's not every single week that they each get their own turn, but they get really excited about it. It's planned during the week. It's a big deal. That's kind of the most we've been able to do with special time at this point, just with our schedules. I have a 4-year-old son as well, so it makes it tricky.
Okay.
And yeah.
Well, that's great that he does get some one-on-one time, although it doesn't sound like enough. That's true.
Yeah.
I'm actually more thinking of the things, because that it reduces sibling rivalry. And it could be that even though he plays well with her, that there's still some sibling rivalry underneath, sort of the chip on his shoulder that he's, that causes him to explode at her.
Yeah.
Especially, we usually see it from the oldest child to the second one, especially when there's a third one. They might like the third one better, but he doesn't sound like he's actually got too much of that, because he wouldn't play with her well the rest of the time, I don't think. And you say they
True.
play together great and they're best friends. So that's
Yeah.
very encouraging. It's more probably a buildup of frustration and of emotions that he doesn't really know how to handle. That's
Yeah.
more. So that you take care of with roughhousing. And you can roughhouse with all 3 kids,
Right.
unless he's hurting someone else during roughhousing, which is not likely.
Right.
Right. So roughhousing daily would be really helpful to him. Roughhousing, laughter, we know laughter changes the body chemistry, and therefore it makes the child more able to handle the frustrations they encounter later in the day. Right. So that, I think roughhousing every morning with all 3 of your kids would be really helpful if you could do it. Just a lot of laughter. That would be. But so that's preventive maintenance. Does he ever cry?
Yes. Yeah. If he gets really upset, he will.
Okay. That's great. The more, the better. How often is that?
It's gotten less often as he's gotten older.
Yeah.
So not daily.
Okay. But every couple of weeks or something?
Probably. Yeah.
Okay. That's great. I don't really mean the more, the better. I just mean when
Right.
a kid is having a hard time, it can mean that they have a bunch of feelings they haven't dealt with, and therefore they're more explosive. And so if they get a chance to process those feelings on a regular basis, that's really an important thing. Okay. So I'm going to assume that you're really paying attention to the 5 preventive maintenance tools, and that you're helping him process emotions on a regular basis. And what we really need is a contract with him to get him to agree that he's not going to hurt her no matter what. And you're going to start giving him tools for in the moment that you don't agree on then, you agree on in advance, right? And the basic tool is this one. Have you ever tried this with him?
No.
Okay. So this is multi-purpose. When you are angry, you can't just get rid of the anger, but you can redirect the anger. So when he wants to do whatever to her, if he can do this instead, and I've seen kids as young as 6, even 5, learn to do this. It can take a month, but every single time they get angry, they're supposed to do this, and they can yell at the same time. They can yell mom if he needs your help and you'll be there, right? They can yell stop if they like that better. They can yell mad and stomp their foot. But what this does, it not only keeps them from hitting or hurting their sibling or somebody else, it also contains them emotionally. And there's work on the vagus nerve that's really interesting. There are new things coming out all the time of ways to calm ourselves. And one is this. This is very self-calming. And so this thing, which I've been using for years, it turns out, I didn't know this, to also be uh, related to the self-calming thing. So this is containing, and then this will help him calm himself. He can, because he's going to want to continue to take action, right? Because he's still got, fight, flight, or freeze, fight going on. He's got fight going on. And at that point, you have to be standing at the ready, because you basically have a couple of months here of an intensive work to interrupt this cycle of violence, right? So you have to I would like you to get your hands on my sibling book, read this part. If you have a hard time finding it, let me know. And read about the mom who did the contract and what the contract says and stuff. And if you still want support on that, let me know. And teach him this skill, which is also outlined in the sibling book. And talk to him, brainstorm with him about other things he can do when he feels like hurting. And don't shame or blame him about the feeling like hurting. Everybody feels like that sometimes. The question is whether we do it. And the answer is we don't. We don't do it because it hurts the other person. And I would say that if he's not going to be perfect in the beginning, obviously. So, but he might get down from 3 times a day to twice a day right away, but he's not going to be perfect. There will be times when he actually still hurts. And I think you're right to say it hurt your relationship with your sister, but also you hurt your sister's body. And to say it with feeling, like you hurt your sister's body and you hurt her feelings and you hurt your relationship. And I think it needs more than just an I'm sorry. I think if you're going to play with her, and it really has to be, the agreement has to be, you cannot play with your sister if you're going to hurt her. You cannot play with her if you're going to hurt her. Now that's punishment for her too, unfortunately. So she'll be like, nope, didn't hurt.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, but that's, that's still, it still should be that he cannot, if he hurts her, he cannot play with her then.
Okay.
Whether it's for the rest of the day or for a couple of hours until he makes the repair. And also he has to make a repair with you because the contract is with you, not with her. The contract is with you that he is not going to hurt. This is a sacred responsibility, being a big brother to his little sister. If he's hurting her, that's never okay. And you're going to be his partner in figuring out how not to do that.
Okay, that's great. Just one quick follow-up with that. If he does the defiant thing where, I say, okay, you need to take a break from each other, you can't play, and he just says no and like refuses to leave, physically leave her presence, how do I?
I would go and first of all, comfort her.
Yeah.
And I think when she gets hurt, ignore him, go to her. That's your general rule. Ignore him, go to her. Take her away from the situation if you can. If she's like, no, but I want to play here. I want to finish doing this. You say, I think it sounds like you have something important to tell your brother. And she can say, and you can give her the words, you can tell your brother that when he hurts you, you don't want to play with him and he's not welcome to play with you. And you say to him, sweetheart, I know that you're really angry right now. And it's hard to walk away and leave. And you broke our contract and you hurt your sister. And that's never okay. You can tell your sister what you're mad about in words, but you cannot hurt her no matter what, never. And now it's time to come away. And if he's like, no, I won't, you can say, okay, but you're not welcome to play with this. And if you're not going to drag him off by force, you're just going to sidestep that power struggle, move her, remove the toy, whatever they were playing with, say, okay, sweetie, your brother is having a very hard time right now. He's so angry and he really, it's hard for him to leave, but you and I are going to move this thing you were working on with him. We're going to move it over here and you can play over here. You just do it. And he's going to be very angry. So you have to be, again, there's not shame or blame here. I see how angry you are. I see how hard this was for you, sweetheart. And I know you're working hard to control yourself and not hurt with your contract. But in fact, this time it was too hard for you. So right now, it was too hard for you. You can try again later. But right now, we're going to take a break from each other.
Okay, great.
All right.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay. Our next person is Gail. Hi, Gail. You're still muted. I'm going to see if I can. Oh, you have to ask. There you go. Hi.
Okay. Hi. Nice to meet you, doctor. Very happy to be here.
Glad you're here.
Okay, so this is a playground question. I only have one girl. She's almost 4 years old, and she should have started school this year, but with lockdown, there has been no school. And I have no children around, like no nephews, no nieces, no nothing. So I don't know what's normal in the playground. And I was a very shy girl, and I'm very anxious socially.
Okay.
So my daughter is strong-willed. She's very social. She loves interaction. We're in Mexico City, and it's been only 2 weeks since the playgrounds have been opened again, and we've been going there. And she's bossy. She's very bossy. She's an only child, no cousins, no nothing. So she picks fights, and whenever she finds another bossy girl like her, and she will become very angry, very upset, very hurt, and she comes to me. And yesterday, for example, a girl told her there was a wheel, like you move a wheel and there are balls and things like that. And this girl, her same age, told her she couldn't have a turn at the wheel. So she came to me and she cried and she was very sad and she was very upset. And I get very anxious and very nervous, and I try not to dismiss, and I ask questions. How does that make you feel? But I'm not sure how to react because I freeze. I don't want her to be hurt. After a while, she kind of got bored of me and she went back to play. But it's really upsetting knowing how to manage this playground conflict.
So, first of all, I love that you're able to see that part of your reaction to this is you. It's your own, not being sure how to navigate social stuff and feeling a little anxious about that. And that when you were younger, maybe you were shy and maybe you got pushed around on the playground or whatever. So I think it's so important for all of us to remember what we're bringing to the situation. Secondly, I would say 4-year-old girls are bossy. Maybe not all of them, but a lot of them are. And you can look on the AHA Parenting website, and you can find a few letters from moms of 4-year-old girls saying, my daughter is so bossy. What do I do? And by the way, those might be helpful to you to take a look at. But it's not uncommon. And also 4-year-olds don't know yet how to get what they want and also be respectful of somebody else. They're not really sure they're going to get what they want if they are respectful. So they order people around. And then when they run into somebody as bossy as them, then they get upset, right? This is a great opportunity for your daughter to learn all this. She's right on track, to learn the right things. And this is something that you learn when you're 4. It all makes sense. So one thing I would say about kids on the playground is when your child comes running to you because they're hurt, obviously you want to empathize. You want to say, oh, you're so disappointed. You really wanted to play with that wheel. And that girl was using it already. And she said, no, you couldn't have a turn. Is that what happened? Oh, no wonder you're disappointed. You were really hoping to have a turn on that. Yeah, I hear you, sweetie. And she might say, I'm so mad about that, or that I hate that girl. She might, express some anger about it. You can say, you really wish you could use that. And you're feeling pretty mad that she's not giving you a turn, aren't you? Yeah. Well, and I would give her plenty of opportunity to express whatever it is she's feeling. And then you can say, when she starts, she might even, you said she got bored and went back, right? She might even just do it. But you could say, well, you have a choice when this happens at the playground. Nobody owns the wheel, but you do have to wait your turn for the wheel, and she has it first. So your choice is you can wait for the wheel. You can ask her when she'll be done with the wheel. And if she'll tell you when she's done, or you can just keep an eye on her, but you can ask her when she thinks she'll be done with the wheel. And she might say, oh, you can have it now. Or she might say never. You have to be prepared. She might not want to give that wheel up because she might really like using it. And you could do something else while you're waiting for the wheel. You could just do something else. If you want, I can push you on the swing or something, whatever. You can climb over there, and you can keep an eye on the wheel, because you know what? She's not going to use the wheel forever. And then your daughter has a choice. This is resilience. It's like, okay, I have my mom as backup to help me through this situation by listening to my feelings and helping me sort out my options. And I'm finding inside myself that I do have the inner resource of being able to manage my disappointment. I can feel it and I can go on and do something else for a while, and then I can go play with the wheel, and that will build her resilience every chance, every time that she asks herself to do that, it actually does build her resilience. Whereas if you were somehow magically able to hand her a wheel every time, she's not building resilience. It's not actually what we want to do.
Okay, and what about if she gets into a fight with the other girl? Because that's her. She will first be hurt, and then she will go and try to get the wheel.
So if she gets into a fight with the other girl and you weren't part of it or anything, anytime she gets into a fight at the playground, you'd want to go over to where it's going on and say, wow, just the way you might have heard me talk about sibling interaction. It's the same. It's like, wow, I hear some loud voices. Looks to me like both of you want this wheel and you're having a hard time with that. Right now, if the other girl actually had the wheel first, she had the wheel first. Your daughter cannot bully her into giving up the wheel. Actually, so you can say to your daughter, you use her name and you say, honey, you really want this wheel. I see how much you want it. And this girl was already using the wheel. And then you do the same thing. Like, you can ask her when she'll be done with it, and you can take your turn then. And she might look at you in daggers, like, and she might look daggers at the girl and say, when will you be done with it? And the girl might say never, because they are in the middle of an altercation. And she might say, no, you can't keep it forever. And you can say, on the playground, we do take turns, and she had it first. We're going to let her have her turn first. I know it's hard to wait, but we need to wait because somebody else had it first. You have a choice. You can do the swings or you can do the climbing. And and then you say to the other girl, you apologize on your daughter's behalf. You say, I'm sorry. My daughter was so excited about the wheel that she forgot that she needed to wait her turn. But you can go ahead and use the wheel. You're just trying to create peace, because then she's more likely to give your daughter the wheel at some point in the future, instead of ferociously hanging on to it until her parent or nanny drags her away, eventually. So you'd like it if there was some peace here. So you do this. And also it models for your child how to repair something when there was an altercation, when they forgot themselves and grabbed the wheel away from somebody. And then you just take your daughter away. And if she has a full-blown meltdown, then it probably is not about the wheel. It's about feeling like she never gets what she wants and life is so terrible. And then she just needs to cry, right? That could be, she just could have a full backpack from yesterday or whatever and just be having a hard time. But if she's actually crying about that wheel, it's unlikely, unless she was talking about the wheel all day yesterday, and this is her main focus in life. That can be the case. But in that case, it wasn't even about the wheel.
Okay, I'll try that.
Okay.
A lot of work to do on myself. Thank you very much.
Good luck. Okay, our next person is Valerie.
Valerie had to leave.
Oh, okay.
We're going to start with Joanna, then Jenny, then Lauren.
Okay, Joanna, it says Joanna, then Lauren, but we're going to do Jenny first before Lauren. Okay,
we're
great.
Gonna go, yes, Lauren's putting to, yes.
Got kids to bed. Got it. Joanna. Hi, Joanna. You can unmute yourself. Can you see?
Hello, Dr. Laura.
Hi, Joanna.
I have a question, just wanted to get some direction from you. I have a 2-year-old Adam, and I've been with him at home for the past 2 years. We didn't let him go to daycare because of the COVID, and my husband has been home with us. So it was the 3 of us. And then we have a 3-month-old Emily. And when Emily was born, it was mostly my husband taking care of Adam, waking him up, giving him breakfast, and because I was breastfeeding. So a lot of the times, because it was not scheduled, so he was helping me with Adam quite a lot. And he's been good with Emily, you know, try to hit her a few times, but whenever he would do it, he would really feel bad about it. So I don't think there's a lot of anger towards her. But since I'm not with him all the time, I feel like he's going through like a grief as well. He's been starting to resent me, and he kind of wants more of daddy than me. And I really try to wake up early and wake him up and be with him and put him down for naps and
Good.
put him down to sleep. Well, whenever he sees daddy, he just runs to daddy and he just doesn't want anything to do with me anymore.
So heartbreaking.
It really is. So we also try to do some one-on-one time whenever she's napping. I take them for walks when she's sleeping in a stroller, and I try to play with him in the playground. Am I doing things right and I just have to be patient, or is there anything more I should be doing?
So first of all, it's very natural when you have a new baby for your partner to take more of the responsibility for the older child. But I have seen this happen in many families where then there is a rift between the older child and the mom. And so, and you absolutely can heal that rift, but you actually, I believe, have to work on healing it. I don't think it heals by itself. I think there's always some pain there on the part of he's showing you the pain right now.
Yes, and he has tantrums at least once a week.
Yeah. Yeah. So once a week for a 2-year-old is completely it's normal.
Okay.
But he's showing you his pain by not relating to you in the same way. Now it's great he relates to his dad that way, and that, you know, his dad is his comfort person and he wants to be with his dad. That's great. But there's also some healing that needs to happen between the two of you. So I think that it is time. She's 3 months old. I understand she's still nursing and she still takes an
Okay.
amount of care, and you're probably up at night and all of that. But I do think that it's time that, I mean, in general, I really recommend, and I don't know if you've read my sibling book, but the whole last third of the book is about introducing the new baby. And I
Yeah.
be clear in there, do not divide up the kids. You divided up your kids so that your husband has him and you have her. It's always a bad idea. This is what you end up with when that happens. And you can heal it. Absolutely. I've seen it in many families, and, you know, and it heals, but you have to actually now put some energy into healing it. So I would start by not dividing them up. I would start by, whenever possible, being with him and giving her to your husband. Luckily, your husband's home right now, at least because of COVID. So whenever, I understand nursing takes a lot of time, but anytime your husband can be the one to care for her, I'm not saying that you now shunt her off on him always or anything, but I am saying that I think more and more you want to be there for him.
What about, sorry to interrupt, but he gets really upset when my husband holds her, and he just keeps saying, Emily.
Part of the picture. This is part of the picture. The accommodation, the deal he made with the devil is, all right, I'll give my mom up. I'm really unhappy about that. It's going to haunt me the rest of my life, but I'm going to give her up. But I get my dad. That's what this is. And I've seen it in family after family. And it's so I think for your husband, what your husband needs to do is say, when he's holding the little one and Adam gets upset, he needs to say, oh, Adam, I am your dad too, but I am Emily's dad too. And I will always be here for you, but I will also always be here for Emily. I think it's important that, and your son will throw himself on the floor and wail. And part of that is the grief about losing you. It's not just the grief about losing his dad, right? It's that now he already lost his mom, and now he might lose his dad too, right? That's terrifying. So I think this is really great that you're asking this question. This is your major new project for the next 3, 6, 9 months, honestly, is to make up for it. Luckily, it's only 3 months in. She's only 3 months old, thank goodness. It's not like he's 2, right? And he's 4, thank goodness. So I would just start to normalize your time with him, normalize your husband's time with her, and use the peaceful parenting tools, use the preventive maintenance tools like roughhousing and empathizing. And when I say scheduled meltdowns, what I really mean is allowing your child when they're angry, making it safe for them to go under the anger to see what else is there when he gets angry. So that, like, as I said, with your husband, you might be angry that your husband has Emily, but when you are loving to him, but you hold that boundary that of course he gets to, of course he's going to hold Emily. He's her dad. Your son is going to, that anger is going to be like, he's going to hit that immovable wall and he's going to just collapse into tears. And that's great. Getting to express that pain, preferably with you holding it, but he might not let you hold him. He might be like, no, I only need daddy. And in that case, if you can put her in a safe place and the two of you can be there together,
Okay.
even better. Because remember, that's what he had. His whole 2 years until 3 months ago, his parents were both there, or one or the other of you. But he was the only one. So anyway, he does need to have the opportunity to cry to heal this, and he needs as much roughhousing as you can get to get him past the anger to the point where he can cry more readily. Right?
Okay. Okay. Sounds good. Dr. Laura,
Good luck.
thank you.
Yeah. So our next person is, sorry, I'm scrolling here. That was Joanna. So Jenny.
Hi,
Hi,
Dr.
Jenny.
Laura.
Hi.
I have a 9-year-old little boy, or he's not so little anymore, but we're homeschooling right now. And we started out kind of not really truly on that path on purpose, but COVID changed everything, as it did for many people. We were actually in the middle of transitioning from public school to private school, and then COVID changed those plans. So then we did our county's virtual program, and that did not go well. So I pulled him out. I was, I think, the fourth family to actually pull out of that particular class and homeschool him. So it wasn't going well for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I'm a widow, and he's my only son, my only child. So it's just been the two of us. And deschooling was definitely a process, but we got there. He's a very intelligent little boy. He reads he's read books that are probably high school level. He's very smart. And he knows what he likes. And we're at the point now where he doesn't want to do his lessons. And we've kind of been in this kind of rut for the last probably 2 months. And if I can get him to sit down, I have to be sitting next to him to get him to do anything. But then he comes up with lots of excuses. First, he has to go to the potty, and he can sit in the potty for 45 minutes with a book.
Maybe no books, but go on.
Yes. So I tried to take the book away, but he's like, no, I have to have the book to read, Mom, or to poop, Mom. Okay. So then it's 1,000,001 snacks. And hours later, after what we should have been done in 2 or 3 hours time, we're still trying to get through it. Or I try to get him to sit down at our scheduled time to do lessons. And he's like, no, I'm not doing it right now. I'm going to go play. And I'm kind of at a loss as to how to motivate him, because he is eventually going to go back to in-person school, although probably not for next year. I'm probably going to be homeschooling again next year, maybe.
That you're planning to homeschool again next year, because it sounds like it's not really working right now.
It's not working, but I don't know what other options I have is the problem.
You have an option to send him to school starting in September.
The public school is where he is not an option right now. We were
because of COVID.
No, actually, there were some bullying issues.
Okay, so you're not in there. Got it. Good.
Yeah.
Good.
And he was very resilient with that, and he got through it. But then we ran into bullying from teachers and discrimination by teachers. My late husband was of a different ethnicity, so my son is mixed.
Okay.
And yes, I went through the whole process of going to the higher officials, and it is what it is. And
sorry. Yeah.
So the best solution was to go to the private school.
Mm-hmm.
But that's at the moment not going to be an option for next year, I guess, ultimately because of COVID. But he would just be really behind for where they are. I think it would cause more stress on his end. It's a very writing intensive school, and that's actually the one subject he doesn't like that much.
Mm-hmm.
So I haven't as hard as they would have. And sorry, I cut out for a second.
Yes.
So
Sure.
my options are kind of limited for next year as a result.
So Jenny,
Fifth grade.
I totally understand you're not going to put him back in a school where there was bullying and where the people in charge were not able to solve the problem. And I hear you that it's not going to work for the private school this year. I wonder if there's another option that would work for you, because what's happening now is not working, right?
Right.
So it sounds like he needs the engagement of something in person.
Yes.
Right. It's not
he's always been that way.
Yeah.
He's always had to have separate teacher from mom. So I knew that from when he was
someone
little.
he has a relationship with that he can see in person, and not just because it sounds like he's just not engaged. I mean, I could say to you, well, here's how you cajole him, and here's how you set up a schedule, and here, listen to this audio about how to set up your day if you're, deschooling or homeschooling or, whatever. And those things would help a little bit, but really he's not engaged because he's not there in person. I think he needs from what you've just said, I think he needs an in-person option. And I think you don't want to erode your relationship with your son by continuing to have these struggles with him. That doesn't sound like a good way to go. So it sounds like leaving no stone unturned for another option for school would really be good. And I don't know what your options are in terms of what's around you, or heaven forbid, even having to move, but something that would allow him to actually be in school. COVID is going to be over and schools are going to be open. So pods are not really going to be a thing, right?
Yeah.
But some homeschooling families do use pods long before COVID, right? And love them. And that can be a really great way to do it. Kids can, I'm thinking of a kid I know who was in a pod that I've been working with his mom during COVID, of course. But this is a kid who was having a hard time in school in person. And he and a friend, his best friend, the parents hired someone to work with the two boys. And it turned everything around for him in terms of just learning with just his friend and a teacher, though, not the mom. The mom would have been in power struggles with him all day, every day, right? So there might be other things that will work for you. I don't know what they would be, but I would urge you to leave no stone unturned to do something different than homeschooling. Just because I'm hearing that certainly there are ways I could help you do more with homeschooling, but I'm just saying, I don't think it's going to be enough. That's the read I'm getting here for you. What do you think?
Yeah. Okay.
There.
Yeah. I think so. It's just been a struggle to find, just because of the area we're in. There are a lot more opportunities in other areas than where I live.
And you can't move. You're in a place where you need to be.
I am. I have family nearby, but it's a fairly rural area. So,
well, it does sound like it would be, certainly you can put some energy into figuring out the homeschooling better. And if you weren't in the membership last fall and able to listen to the audios that I made at that point, they might be helpful to you. I can give you an audio, but I just think, I think it's going to be more than that. It doesn't sound to me like, it sounds like you sort of backed into homeschooling and that it's not actually what is going to work for either of you so well.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
All right.
I wish I had better answers. It's very hard when you don't have a local school that's going to work for you, obviously.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Dr. Laura. I appreciate it.
All right. Okay. So our next person is
Lauren.
Lauren. Hi, Lauren. Where are you? I see you. Hi.
Hello. Hiya. Sorry, I've missed quite a bit because I've had to go and put my kids to bed, but hopefully it will all be quiet. My husband's up there. So thank you very much for this. I've been sort of following your stuff for the last year or so. It's only the second Office Hours I've made, and absolutely love it, and it's just been so helpful. But yeah, I've got a nearly 5-year-old daughter and a 2.5-year-old daughter, and my nearly 5-year-old's always been very sensitive, very emotionally dysregulated, I would say. She's always struggled more than her peers appear to. So going through nursery, and it's always been, or even when she was a baby, she was that high needs baby and always kind of needing that extra attention, which we've given to her. I'm quite a naturally empathetic person, I think, although I do worry that I sometimes kind of fall on the side of permissive, because I feel so much for her that I worry that I understand why she's getting upset, and I probably or I have in the past kind of tried to help her too much in some way, so she's not maybe developed resilience. She started school, so she's 5 in May. She started school in September, and I sort of worried that she might be a bit young, but she's found the year really quite challenging. She gets on fine with friends, she's got lots of friends, it seems, but her restraint collapse is just enormous. So as soon as I pick her up from school, she's this week, for instance, we've just come back from half term, and she's been falling about on the pavement next to a busy road, kind of rolling around, just having massive tantrums, and in front of all her friends, and it doesn't care at that point. She just loses it. She's exhausted. And we also have other problems, like she's having lots of problems with wetting, so she's seeing the pediatric urologist because she's having 4 or 5 accidents a day. She doesn't really eat very well, so we have lots of problems at meal times. She's not very interested in food, so it's always a massive struggle when we come to the dinner table. So there's always power struggles around that. Even though trying to take the emphasis and the pressure off, it's she won't come to the table, or she'll make an excuse to get down, and then she doesn't want anything, and then we're all horrible and everyone hates her, and she just gets very emotional and upset about it. I feel like she's got a really full backpack, but I don't know how to empty it. I've done, we do rough housing every day.
Good.
I try and do special time, although it is a challenge to fit in, but we sort of try and do 10 minutes a day. I really try to sort of get everyone around her, not to shame her, and so I'm trying to follow all the stuff, but she goes to anger, and it's very hard to get her to get to the tears. I mean, she cries, but she's angry crying, and I never really know whether it's the kind of the crying that's releasing what she needs to release, or whether she's just still so consumed with anger. And when I try and talk to her afterwards about what's happened, sort of maybe 3-4 hours later at bedtime, I'm like, well, it was really hard earlier, wasn't it? And we start to talk about what happened, and she just flat out denies it. I didn't do that, no, nobody likes me, and she'll just go straight back into the everyone's against me thing. And I just don't really know how to help her. It's I'm a bit stuck.
It's so hard, Lauren. It's so hard. I hear how embarrassing it is when you pick her up and she's having this full-blown
I'm not
meltdown.
embarrassed, I'm used to it. I'm not.
You're used to it now.
I get through it, and I just sort of I feel so desperately sorry for her, because she just seems so stuck.
She does sound stuck, and the chip on her shoulder about nobody likes me, that that you said, that comes up in the eating stuff, and it comes up later when you talk about stuff. Does sound like,
I think it's friends. I think it's just her just trying to say, I'm on my. I think it's her way of saying nobody gets me in this family.
so you don't think it's about friends? You think it's really about
no. So at school, I think she's got lots of friends, but she finds it really hard work. She's very socially aware. Good. So in the morning she wants to find out what her friends are wearing so she can wear the same as them. She's conscious that her skin's slightly darker than most of her friends. She's conscious that she's the smallest in the school, that she doesn't quite keep up with her friends. But she's very popular, but I think she has to work really hard to be really popular. if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. She also sounds highly sensitive, right? She's
Yeah.
got her radar out. She's picking everything up from her friends and from you at home. And kids who are highly sensitive often have full backpacks. Often it's hard. They feel so much that it's just hard for them to process that stuff. And they need to cry every single day. And, you know, she's probably got years of backlog here that she needs to cry, right? So does she laugh when you roughhouse with her?
Yeah.
Great. Because
Yeah.
if she can roughhouse and laugh for half an hour a day, if you can do that every morning, then you're sending her to school with more inner resource. Is there a way to do it in the
Yeah.
morning? I know mornings are busy.
So yeah, I mean, mornings we're up at sort of 5:30, 6 o'clock. I have to leave for work at 10 to 7. So my husband then kind of takes her to, I mean, she was going to breakfast club, but she, you know, I've pulled her out of that because I think it's just too long a day. So she's going to her friends now, we take them to school. But yeah, I mean, mornings are really hard. Sometimes she wakes up and she's delightful for, you know, 20 minutes. And, you know, if it all works out well and no one, you know, her sister's doing what she wants her sister to do, then the morning can kind of go okay. And we get to sort of nearly leaving time and no one gets angry. But most of the time she gets up and she's already screaming before someone's even come into her room. You know, if my husband goes in, for instance, she'll often scream, "Oh, I hate you, I want mummy, and I'm in the shower. And so by the time I got out of the shower, she's already, you know, and it's a rush in the morning. So yeah.
So Lauren, do you wake her up or does your husband wake her up?
No, so she
wakes
they
up.
have to, well, we try and get them to stay in bed until their sons are up, but she's probably awake by 5:30, 5:45.
So she wakes herself up.
She's allowed to get up. Sometimes she'll come up before, but yeah.
Okay, good. As long as you're not waking her up. Sometimes when kids are in a bad mood in the morning, it means they didn't get enough sleep. So this sounds like, again, full backpack. She just wakes up in a bad mood. Everyone can do that once in a while, but to do it routinely indicates, again, a full backpack. I think you're totally right about this. So I think this is your big emotional project here for the next period of time, is to help her work that stuff out with, and she does need to laugh in the morning because it will help her all day long. And she does need to laugh later in the day when you pick her up later in the day. And as much as possible to empathize, to comment on what she wants and needs. Also, I would pick your battles. There's zero reason to struggle about food. The only reason I know to discuss how much the child is eating at dinner is if they're going to be hungry later. And then they can if they're going to be hungry later, they can eat what they didn't eat. You just stick it back. If you have a microwave, you stick it back in the microwave, put it in front of them again, and they can have that same thing, right?
Yeah, so that we sort of do that, but so dinner time's normally about 5 by the time I've got the other girl home from nursery, and we go up for bath time at 6. So, you know, it's dinner time, then we go up for bath time, it's bed by 7, and then she's in bed, and then she's like, I'm hungry. Right. And so we'll give her a banana, or we'll give her some cold pasta or something. But, you know, we sort of want to get away from that and be like, bedtime's bedtime, mealtime's mealtime. And so it's, I just try and be really relaxed about it. But
Lauren, you do not need to be fighting with her about food. So I would actually, I'm a big believer in bedtime snacks, but and in allowing 15 minutes in the schedule, you can do it after bath and before brushing teeth, 15 minutes in the schedule where it's your first book that you read them for, you know, at bedtime is as they eat that snack. And they do gradually, you can wean them off of that gradually, you know, certainly by the time they're 7, but she's only 5. I could see that being something she needs. I don't know why she doesn't sit down and eat at dinner, but it could be that she needs to laugh more before dinner, right? It could well be that she is just too antsy to do that if she hasn't had some roughhousing before dinner. I don't know.
Yeah, we tend to do it after dinner just because of the time pressures of the day.
You tend to do roughhousing after dinner.
Yeah.
So, you know, if she's coming straight home from school and sitting down to eat dinner, That
No,
is,
so she comes home from school, and then we normally, I'll do 10 minutes leisure time, and then I let her watch 20 minutes of TV while I get dinner ready, and I go and pick up her sister from nursery, and then we come back and eat dinner.
I see. Okay. So it's hard to have time because you have to get dinner on the table. It's hard to have time to roughhouse with her. But it does sound like there's a bad pattern here at dinner and you want to interrupt that pattern. And that
Yeah.
pattern is about struggling over what she eats, and you never need to struggle over. As long as you're putting healthy food in front of her, you don't need to worry
Yeah.
about how much she's eating. Often she's not going to eat. And you can give her the same food when she's hungry at bedtime if you've added 15 minutes into the schedule. It does sound like, you have to put them to bed early because they're getting up quite early also. It's just so hard. These days are so tight, right? When we're working, it's just hard. It's like, how do you fit everything in, right? But I do think that extra time on the weekend with one-on-one time with her, with you and her,
Yeah.
and extra time laughing on the weekend, and as much opportunity to cry as possible is really important. And you say angry crying. The goal when she gets angry is to create safety, not to tell her she's being inappropriate ever, but when she's angry to say, "Oh, sweetie, you're having such a hard time. I'm so sorry." "Don't you say you're sorry. I hate," she's gonna explode at you. And you're like, "I'm right here with a hug when you're ready. I'm sorry. This is so hard. It's so hard when you don't get XYZ that you wanted. I hear you." Right?
Yeah, I think she gets really annoyed with me when I do that. And, so I did think, well, is it because it doesn't seem genuine? And she's sort of thinking, oh, mummy's faking it. But I do really understand. And she's like, "I hate it when you say you understand. I hate it when
And don't say you
And
understand.
then
Don't
suddenly
say
she'll
you
flip and she'll be
understand.
really, really,
Don't say you
okay.
understand. I don't think I just said I understood. Did I? I don't think so.
No, maybe
No,
not.
I actually don't use that phrase usually because I don't think I understand. And anytime you tell someone who's upset you understand, like think about someone
Yeah.
a friend who's going through a hard time, and you say you understand. Well, if I haven't had the cancer or the divorce or whatever, I don't understand, right? Actually, and even if I have, I don't understand what she's going through. So I wouldn't say I understand. I would say, "I'm sorry, it's so hard." And if she
Yeah.
says, "Don't say that, I hate you," you can say, "You don't even want me to talk. You're so upset. I hear you. I'm zipping my mouth."
Mhm.
And then you can unzip it a minute later, say, "I'm right here with a hug when you're ready." "No, don't say." And you just said, and you're just there with a big heart, ready to hug her. Will she come to you for a hug at some point?
Yeah. Yeah. And she'll often come for a hug. I think she tries to kind of make it up with us and sort of come and have a hug. More with my husband, really, because they sort of tend to. I think it's different with the relationship they have, and she'll sort of go up to him and be like, "Daddy, cuddle."
Good.
And with me, she'll just come for a hug eventually, but then she'll want to either change the subject, or as soon as it's brought up again, because I feel like we never really do
The
you
crying.
know,
What you want is
feels like they let her walk all over us.
what you want is for her to experience those feelings. And that's a terrible thing
Yeah.
to want to visit on anyone, is to feel pain, but she's got a lot of pain there. And the more she can tell you about it or show it to you, or just feel safe enough to feel it, the better. So she's clearly not feeling understood. So your job, and by the way, I just want to encourage you, Lauren, that I have seen this in so many families, and you absolutely can turn this around. It's your willingness to be with her through all that pain. And you don't even worry about where it came from. She's highly sensitive. She's taken things in and held on to them, and now she needs to offload
Yeah,
them.
we've had a lot of change and death in the family and stuff this year. So there's a lot that she's going. I know that she's kind of trying to work through. So yeah,
So
it's understandable.
you're able to be there and be loving with her and help her and empathize, and using these tools. I mean, that's what you're doing. And now's the time to do it before she goes any further with sort of feeling perpetually misunderstood. And I see in my work with families that within 6 months, you can see a huge difference. But you really have to use these tools. And Lauren, if you decide that you want some support to do this, then you might want to get some parent coaching to help you through those moments. It does sound
Yeah,
like what you're doing is good.
yeah.
That you know
I
what you're
feel
doing.
like we could do with some. But do you know anyone in the UK who?
I think you'd have to do it online, but I think parent coaching
Yeah.
is fine to do online.
Okay.
There is a really good UK outfit. It's called the Parent Practice.
Okay.
They brought me in to speak before. They're good people. They're in London. And so they run, workshops and stuff, and they do have trained people that will work with you one-on-one, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Right.
Brilliant. Thank you.
And of course, there's always, just for anybody, there's always the page on my website of the people that I've trained. So there's 15 parenting coaches I've trained who are on the.
Okay, and I could do it online with one of them.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. So I want to also say, I want to go back because I was thinking about Jenny, who I was talking to about school, and I wanted to say, it feels so hard to not have a good option. And I don't mean to sound so hopeless about this, Jenny, that I think it is possible to enroll your son in feeling motivated around school. I just think that you're a single mom, you're working so hard at this, and you're being so patient with him. And I don't want it to impinge on your relationship with him, that you have to keep him engaged. So I'm hoping that you can find other options. And I noticed somebody put care.com in the chat. I think that's great. Anything where you're not the point person. You can set up the schedule. You can have him meet online with a math tutor, whatever. I think that would be a way to protect your relationship with him, Jenny. And I would say, other people were commenting, and I forgot to say this, when you were talking about your son in the bathroom with the book, the most important indicator of children's success at school is reading. If they love to read, it means they do better in everything else, even math, which I don't understand, but that is in fact what the research shows. So at least you don't have to feel demoralized by this. At least he loves to read, and that already is, you have done a wonderful job of supporting that, the development of his love for reading. So I'm hoping that gives you a little more to go forward with. Okay, so I know, Candace, that we have a couple of questions that somebody was in Australia or somewhere, and so there's a time zone issue, and they pre-submitted a question, and then there was someone else who pre-submitted to you because they had an issue. Yes, somebody's mentioning Thana. Thana is in LA. Thana's wonderful. I would highly recommend Thana as a parenting coach. Someone mentioned her. I guess I'm back, Candace, to you. Do we have anybody else who was already in our queue who's waiting to speak, or are we?
We have a couple of people with questions. I have one pre-submitted question.
You have one pre-submitted, not two. Okay, so we have the one pre-submitted.
Yeah.
So, you know what I'm going to suggest? Let's do that one first. I don't know how big it is, so let's do that one to start. And then if we have time, we are over time already, but we could take one more.
Sure, I think. Okay, and I have someone in mind if we get that far.
Okay, great.
Pre-submitted question from a member in a different time zone. I'm just gonna, can you hear me?
Just perfectly.
It is actually a question about eating. My question is picky eating in a 3-year-old who's extremely strong-willed and sensitive to strong smells and tastes, prefers bland foods like pasta with cheese, crackers, biscuits, occasionally fish fingers and sausage and chicken, but most of his nutrition is coming through a liquid meal that his mother makes him in a smoothie multiple times a day. If they attempt to have him eat his dinner, it turns into power struggles and tantrums, and mom is very triggered by his not eating proper meals with more variety. And so where does she start?
Okay, so first of all, it sounds like there might be some sensory issues here. So if the child doesn't have sensory issues and is just a picky eater, that's possible. They would usually, they could easily actually be limited to the diet that's just been described. That's certainly possible. I have seen kids with sensory issues who really could only eat liquidy things or soft things and really had a hard time with anything with texture, if that's what you're describing, I didn't quite hear that. I heard bland food that is white food. That's very common for 3-year-olds, bland food and
Yes.
white food. But
Belle prefers white food, but mom is making smoothies that she's putting ginger, oats, seeds, almond butter, fruits, and veggies in so that he gets some nutrition.
got it. Okay. So it's not that the child is expressing a need for soft food. Okay. So that's out. All right. So I would just say that uh, this mom has already mentioned getting triggered. And we often get triggered by our children's eating because we're worried about their health. We're worried about whether we're good enough moms or dads. And we're worried that we need to make sure that they eat well. Sometimes it's also what we were just talking about a moment ago, where we're worried about the child at bedtime saying, well, I'm hungry now, even though they didn't eat earlier. But most of the time, and it sounds like in this case, the trigger for the parent is that the child isn't getting the nutrients we think are important, the vegetables, for instance, or the protein. So that's why making the smoothies with vegetables and almond butter in it. So I would say it is fine to give your kid a smoothie with vegetables and almond butter, every day, if that's an insurance policy. But at the same time, during meals, to encourage your child to try the things that the family is eating. And your child may well, and I mean, 3-year-olds are sort of famous for not doing that, not trying what the family's eating. They need to see you not saying something's good for them. Never. You never say something's good for a kid. I mean, then they know they're supposed to eat it because it's good for them, but it tastes yucky, right? No, you say, oh, this carrot is so good. Isn't this carrot great? Oh, I love these carrots. And then the kid's like, oh, carrots. Nah, it's orange. But the next time you have the carrot and you do the same thing, they're like, huh, she really does like those carrots. Maybe I would lick it this time. But maybe not. They don't do that till the 4th time they see the carrot, right? But the point is, children are designed to stay alive. So 2 and 3-year-olds and even 4-year-olds do not eat new foods that appear on their plates. They have to see adults eat those foods and survive over and over again before they're willing to eat the foods. That's just, how we're designed, right? So that they could stay alive. That's the first thing. The second thing is they have to see you enjoy those foods, or why would they want to eat them? They're not going to be nearly as good as that pasta, right? So that we already know that about kids. So getting into power struggles with kids about whether they're going to eat the carrot, I think, is a really bad idea, because you will never win a power struggle with somebody else about their own body. And instead, when you set up power struggles about eating, you will never get away from them. And your child will need to assert their control and will basically, become a pickier and pickier eater, a pickier eater, and can even develop an eating disorder if you have ongoing power struggles. Luckily, this child's 3, so you have plenty of time they're not going to get an eating disorder yet, but you have plenty of time to work on your own issues to sort of back off. And that is what I'd recommend here. I would recommend that the mom who's getting triggered about this, that you, first of all, read a good book on kids and nutrition. There's an oldie but goodie that you can get very cheap on Amazon, even where you are, I think, that's called Child of Mine: Eating with Love and Good Sense, or Feeding with Love and Good Sense. And I'm blanking on her name. Somebody might put into the chat if you know what it is, but it's called Child of Mine. And Ellen Satter, that's it, Satter is her last name. So that book will tell you basically, don't fight with your kid about food ever. Only have healthy food in the house. Only put healthy food in front of your child. And they will eat, maybe they'll eat lots of pasta one day. And by the way, you don't have to give them white pasta. You can give them whole wheat pasta, so they're actually getting some, more nutrients, some B vitamins along with their, fiber, right? You don't have to give them white pasta. Just like my kids never even knew there was white rice in the world until they were, old enough that they were eating Chinese food out with friends or something. You don't have to do that. You can decide on healthy food. And if you think your child is not eating enough food because of that, right? Because you're giving them only healthy food, really work hard to give them things that they like that are white and bland. You can take out something from the family meal and put it aside and go ahead and season it for everybody else and just have them have the bland food. That's fine. If it's healthy, right? But I would work hard to disengage from your need for them to eat it. They're not going to starve themselves. Children do not starve themselves. And if you're making the smoothie once a day anyway, then they're eating enough nutrients. I can't imagine any child would need a smoothie 3 times a day to get enough nutrients, unless they're having a very small amount of that smoothie. They don't, 3-year-olds don't need very much food to get enough vitamin A and C. You don't really need that many vegetables to get enough protein. You don't need that much almond butter. So I'm not sure why 3 smoothies a day is necessary. So I'm almost thinking that it might be smart, since this is already a struggle, to have one meeting. You can do it online with somebody, with a registered nutritionist who's experienced with toddlers and can give you some advice about just how much your child needs. I don't have any problem. People often ask, well, is it okay for me to be sneaking vegetables and protein into their food? Yeah, I have no problem with that. Eventually their taste buds will change and they'll love kale. Well, that happened to my daughter. It happens to most, kids when they're little don't like bitter food. When they're older, they're okay with bitter food. They will like kale eventually. It's okay if you can grind up kale and put it in your, tomato sauce that goes on their pasta. Fine. That actually, I think, tastes great. And it's fine to hide it. I'm not worried about them not ever developing a taste for it if you gradually do it. And by the way, if you have a baby, babies have a window. It's on my website under feeding your baby. Babies have a window, which I think is 6 months to a year and a half, which their taste buds become, even if you give them kale, ground up kale at that moment, they might go and sort of spit it out. But then they'll take more if you give it to them on the spoon. And that kid who gets that kale when they're 8 months old is more likely to like kale when they're 14, because they've already been exposed to it as babies. So there's that window. After they're 18 months old, forget it. You cannot get them to eat anything that's unfamiliar, really, right? So you've got a moment when they're babies that you can do it. And there's more and more interesting research on this, but you can read more about it on the website. But anyway, for this mom, I want to say, it's hard when you're worried about your child eating enough, but they will not starve themselves. Talk to your pediatrician. I'm not a doctor, a physical doctor, a medical doctor. Talk to your pediatrician. Talk to someone who is trained in nutrition for toddlers. Read a good book on it, and then really back off the power struggles. That would be my best advice. Good luck. Okay, we're going to I think we have time. We could do one more question. I know we have more people with hands up. We won't get to everybody, but
I was thinking that we would do Matrona. I don't think you've asked a question before, and today is a good day.
Matrona, can you unmute yourself? I hope you're still there. I can't see your face because you maybe had to step away. Matrona, are you there? All right, we're going to say going once, going twice. Who is next on our list? Kate?
Okay, Haya has had her hand up for a number of office hours.
Okay, Haya, hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Okay, thank you so much for everything. I was listening to the Success Path, the audio about self-care, and I hear you saying a lot, like if someone's really struggling, to go for therapy. And I feel like I haven't had success with therapy. I feel like I've had therapists that, I don't know, I feel like they're just like making money off me. And they're just like, I went to EMDR for a year when I was much younger. And I don't even know why I went. Like, I think she just did nothing. And I spent so much money.
It wasn't helpful. The EMDR wasn't helpful at all for a year?
I don't think, she probably wasn't really licensed well and stuff, and I didn't realize. And then I went for a year to another therapist, and I had like such an unhealthy relationship with her. Every time I left, I felt miserable. She told me I can text her, and I would text her and she wouldn't respond. And I just felt like, I don't know why I stayed a whole year, but it was a lot of money and I stayed a year until I realized it's crazy that I should have such a uncomfortable relationship with a therapist.
Yeah.
And then I started a different therapist that was cheaper because she took my insurance. and I paid very cheap, so I was happy, and I'm still with her. Now it's remote since COVID, but and it's like 3 years, and I don't feel like I really do much. I mean, sometimes she's really sweet. She's an older lady. She's like in her 70s, but we just talk, and it's not helping me. And the problem is that I when I get triggered, like when I get very, very triggered, I end up hitting my kids, and I feel really guilty. And then I'm feeling so bad because I listen to the thing. My kids all hurt each other. They all hit each other probably on a daily basis, and like of course they learned it from me, you know. And I just feel like there's like so many programs I like try to look into, and I feel like they're just all taking my money. Like I don't think they're all so legit, you know? Like I feel like a lot of people are just, you know, they have to make money, I understand, but like there was a lady that I looked into and she was like she would help me so much, but she was so expensive. It's like almost like it's only for like, you know, wealthy people.
Therapy is expensive, and there are, I'm sorry to say, a lot of bad therapists out there, actually. And I also think there's a question of fit. Haya, you should feel like your therapist loves you. Like you feel like I love you, which I do. You should feel like your therapist loves you.
Well, I like the therapist I have now. She's just not really helping much. I mean, I don't think
I would tell her that. I would say, this isn't really helping much. What do you, I mean, I would actually just go to your therapist the next time you talk to her and say, I feel like we get along great. I really do like you, and I think you like me, but I feel like this isn't helping. And I want to know what the plan is. I know I have to do the work, but I'm not feeling like I'm getting anywhere with it. And I want to know what the plan is to help me. Because obviously you have old stuff that you want to work on. It's not just parenting coaching. You've been working in the membership and with the course with me for long enough. You know you're not supposed to hit your kids because it's not good for them, but you also just get swept away by that overwhelm. And I know you have a lot of kids too, but you get swept, and you work outside the home too. You get swept away by, you're overwhelmed, you get angry, and you just lose it. I know what happens with it, and it's because you've got all this old stuff that it needs to heal, and
I
that's
definitely do have old stuff. I definitely didn't have like an easy childhood. But the thing is, I feel like the therapist that I'm working with now, like she's getting paid so little money. Like I feel like she's just doing me a favor. I almost feel guilty, like to ask for more. Like
first of all, you never feel guilty to ask for what you need. The other person is allowed to take care of themselves and say, no, I can't do that. You're only paying me X. But honestly, if someone signed on to be your therapist, they are your therapist. It does not matter that, I mean, they may say, look, I really need to renegotiate. You're not really paying me enough. This is not working for me. They can say that. And you can bring it up. You can say, maybe this isn't working for you. But in my experience, therapists aren't withholding from their client because the client doesn't pay enough. They are not doing, if they can't help you, they could say, I'm feeling like you're really stuck, high, and I'm really stuck with this too. And maybe you should see somebody else. That could happen, right? You could hear that from her. I am hearing that you're stuck, and I think we need to find you somebody who you're going to really see some traction with. It is true that therapy is super expensive. I know you don't live in the States, and so it's more
I do live in the States.
You do. You live in the States.
Jersey.
Okay. Somehow I don't know why I thought you lived in Israel.
No.
So sorry. So you know what things cost in the States. I mean, it's unfortunate. It is expensive. I think what we need to do is this. I think we need to let me put my thinking cap on and let me think about who we could refer you to. And I'll write you a note offline.
Do you think it's possible I can do the work last week I had a really hard week. I ended up taking it on my husband too. And I felt really bad. And I told my husband, I'm really going to do your workbook. And the whole week I've been doing the workbook every day. I'm not under so much stress right now. Things have been calm. And I was great the whole week. I didn't yell not once. Do you think I can do it myself?
So I hear from, one of the best things about my job is that I hear from people all the time who write me and say, this course changed my life. I feel like I got more out of this than I did in years of therapy. So I do hear that. And the reason I wrote the workbook was that I thought it would help people who couldn't take the course with doing, the work step by step in the workbook. Some people, they need a whole course or they need the membership, and that's fine. Everybody learns differently. But if you're finding that the workbook is helping you, I think what we really need to change is we need to feel like we are, like it's top of mind and it's worth it. Because it is the hardest thing in the world when you're furious at somebody to not act on that rage, right? So if it's top of mind, if you've been doing the workbook every day and it feels worth it to you, that's what makes the difference. And if the workbook is doing that for you, absolutely. And also, taking yourself back through the course. I mean, the course to me is, I hear from people all the time, it's really effective. It's, really does lead you through a process that takes you from one place to another. Do you listen to the daily meditations or any kind of meditation every day?
Well, since this week I've been doing the workbook, I decided that this has been my top priority this week. I've listened to some sort of meditation every day
Okay.
for a little bit, but I never went to the end of the course because I almost felt like there was no point for me. Like I can't get past emotional regulation. So like I should start working on, the other stuff. It almost felt like it wasn't like relevant to me.
I hear you. That's not the first time I've heard that. I would say what you're doing with the workbook sounds great. I would say listen to something every day also that will keep you, either before you go to bed or when you get up in the morning or sometime, lunch hour if you can, whatever. And I would also say enlist your kids, do the stop the respectful voice chart, which is also respectful hands. Do that again. I think you've done it before. Do
Yeah,
that again.
they're all excited this week. They tell me every day that they're so happy. I didn't actually do the chart because I was scared I was gonna mess up again. I didn't want to do it. My son actually told me he doesn't want to do it with me a chart until he sees that I can be good the whole week. Now he wants to wait for the weekend to see if I'm gonna be calm the whole weekend, then he'll do a chart. But he doesn't want to start it because I've done it in the past.
Oh, it's so
So,
they're
and he-
so hard. They're so tough on us, they're so
well,
tough.
I was okay. He's so happy. He's like, yeah, mommy, we just have to get through Shabbos, the weekend, and then we can
Yes.
start it.
So wouldn't that be amazing if you get through Friday night and all day Saturday and then Sunday morning you wake up and you're able to say, okay, this is going to be it. I would just tell him about the chart. The chart isn't a guarantee that I'm going to be perfect, but it helps me to know that I have something I'm working on and you could divide it into two so that you don't, like mornings and afternoons or whatever, right? So I also am going to shoot you a note offline about therapists, but I hear what you're saying, that you're feeling very encouraged about doing it yourself. I love that. And I think absolutely, but we
I'm a
should.
little scared it won't work because I've done it in the past for a few weeks and then I slide.
Yes, so this is
When life gets stressful, like the holidays were a few weeks ago and it was very stressful.
exactly.
Seeing people that I don't usually see. And so I
Okay.
can probably do it for a few weeks. I'm just scared I'm going to slide without a therapist.
So you do need extra support. I don't think this is something you can say to yourself, oh, I should be able to do this myself. No, you give yourself all the support you can. And so use the workbook, but also have somebody that you can meet with. Even if you're not meeting with them, and I hear money's an issue, but even if you're not meeting with them every week, when that holidays are coming up or something that's going to be super stressful, or whatever, just any moments that feel stressful, somebody that you can get that extra support from. And also, I know you do use the forum, but the Facebook forum, where you can get support. Find whatever gives you support. I guess that's what I'm saying.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. I want to just say, Haya, I admire your commitment and your courage. And I appreciate that you are willing to be open about how your anger gets the best of you. Nobody in this group wants to ever hit their child, including you. And sometimes that happens because we are human. And the work you're doing to leave that behind and to heal your own stuff from childhood, is the most important work we can do to interrupt that cycle. And we're all here sending you love. So we're at the end of our call. We're actually over time. But I want to thank everybody for all the supportive comments in the chat. It's giving each other resources. I'll post the chat when I post the video and the audio from this office hours. I'll post the chat too, so you can refer back to it. I love how supportive everybody is to each other. And, this is the hardest work there is, I think. We're healing ourselves so we can show up for our children the way we want to. So I want to thank each of you for each of you right here now, whose beautiful faces I can see, and also each of you who is listening later, who's in the membership listening later. I want to just say thank you for your hard work with your children, your hard work on yourself. And it is so worth it when we get to see people's children occasionally on the call coming to putting that we get to see their faces. It's such a wonderful reminder for all of us of why we're all doing this. So have a great rest of your day and enjoy your child. Sending you all love. Bye-bye.